about 11:45 a.m. on Sunday the 31st. Um, Obviously, we all saw, online spaces get taken over overnight, last night and overnight into this morning, with rampant speculation that a certain leader in this country was no longer alive. Here's the bigger picture. At least 3 times in the last week, JD Vance was asked point blank in interviews if he's ready to take over as president of the United States should something happen to Donald Trump. First, I was like, that's interesting. I've not heard him be asked those specific questions before. And especially from our press, but it's clear with his cankles and his hand bruises, and that, he went 2 weeks without playing golf, and then he just had no public appearances for 3 or 4 days or something like that. And, that's going to cause some speculation. And with any president, with any president's administration, those contingency plans are in place. They just are. But I think it's safe to say that the frequency and intensity of those discussions in the executive branch have increased over the last month or so. It's very, very clear that Donald Trump is physically unwell. The congestive heart failure, the swelling in the ankles, the bruising on the hand, and he just looks unwell now. I mean, we saw him get off that plane in Russia. Dude had difficulty even walking in a straight line. And especially when you take into account his weight, his diet's worse than mine. I mean, my God, that's saying something. So these discussions, I believe, are happening with regularity in the White House, in the office of the vice president. And as it relates to the Constitution, and I think it's the 22nd Amendment, if JD Vance, for some reason, takes over the remainder of Donald Trump's term and JD Vance serves as president, if he does that and there is more than 2 years left in Donald Trump's term, he will only be permitted to run for re-election one time. If he takes over Donald Trump's term as president and there is less than 2 years in Donald Trump's term, he would be allowed to run for re-election 2 times, assuming he can win. I mean, think back to the 2024 campaign. It's like Donald Trump was filling arenas. JD Vance was having a hard time getting 200 people to show up in a field. I mean, there were so many of his rallies that there were more empty chairs than there were filled chairs. Do you think JD Vance has the charisma to fill an arena? I doubt that. He's a deeply, deeply uncharismatic person. Hang on a second. Okay. Somebody's car alarm's been going nuts this morning. I mean, my dog Tanner has 1,000 times more charisma than JD Vance does. He's not going to have massive campaign events with massive crowds. It's just not going to happen. That's not part of his repertoire. He does not have that personality. But those conversations are happening because it's painfully obvious to everyone that Donald Trump is not well physically in a serious sense. And hopefully we'll get some more reporting on those conversations.